You know, I never thought I'd be the kind of guy sitting here telling you a story about revenge. I always believed people come and go, and life just moves on. But when someone crushes you so badly that your soul feels like it's bleeding, you can't just let it slide, especially when that someone is a person you once thought you'd build a life with. I still remember that evening like it was yesterday. We were sitting in her kitchen. She just made her fancy little avocado toast, wearing this silk robe that probably cost more than my entire monthly rent at the time. She looked at me, sighed, and said in this bored voice, "Look, I just don't think you match my lifestyle." I swear, for a second, I thought I misheard her. So I asked, "What do you mean by that?" She flipped her hair back and went, "I mean, you're a nice guy and all, but I can't introduce you to my friends or family. You're just simple. You wouldn't fit in with my crowd. I need someone who matches my vibe, you know?" Matches her vibe. That word just burned itself into my brain. I sat there, trying not to let my face show how deeply that cut. But inside, it felt like she ripped out every bit of dignity I had left. I'd been working 2 jobs at the time, just trying to build my portfolio as an architect, and yeah, I wasn't earning 6 figures yet. But I had dreams. I had goals. She didn't even care to ask about them. After that conversation, I didn't text her again. I didn't call. I didn't even watch her stories on Instagram. For 2 months, I went completely silent. I buried myself in my work day and night, barely sleeping, barely eating, just obsessed with one thought, proving to myself that I wasn't worthless. That I did match the lifestyle I wanted, if not hers. And then, 2 months later, I stood on a stage in New York, holding an international design award in my shaking hands. The lights were blinding. Cameras flashed. People clapped like thunder. And there she was, standing in the back, frozen, watching me. But before I tell you what exactly happened when our eyes met that day, and how my life completely flipped from that moment forward, let me take you back to the very beginning, to the boy I was before she crushed me, and to the exact moment I decided enough was enough. Because this isn't just about revenge. It's about becoming someone no one ever thought you could be. You know, after she said those words, "You don't match my lifestyle," I walked out of her apartment feeling like my chest was about to cave in. I didn't even argue with her. I didn't fight for myself. I just left. And honestly, for days after that, I couldn't even think straight. I kept replaying her words over and over like a broken record in my head. I'd be brushing my teeth and suddenly hear her voice saying, "You wouldn't fit in with my crowd." I'd be trying to sleep, and I'd see her flipping her hair back with that bored look in her eyes, like I was some random extra in her movie. I was angry. God, I was angry. But more than anything, I was ashamed. I felt small. Invisible. Like everything I had worked for so far meant nothing because I didn't wear designer watches or dine at rooftop bars every night. There were moments when I'd pick up my phone, open her chat, and just stare at it. My thumbs would hover over the keyboard, wanting to type something, anything, to make her see my worth. To remind her how I stayed up with her during her anxiety attacks, how I left meetings early just to bring her coffee when she was stressed at work, how I always told her she was enough even on her worst days. But then I'd remember, none of that mattered to her. In her world, love wasn't love unless it came wrapped in shiny packaging. So I stopped calling. I stopped texting. I even stopped hanging out with the friends we had in common because I couldn't stand the thought of running into her and feeling that burn in my chest again. Instead, I turned all that pain into fuel. Every single day, I'd wake up at 5 a.m., go for a run, come back drenched in sweat, and sit at my desk drafting designs till my eyes blurred. I started pitching my concepts to firms I never thought would even read my emails. I didn't care about rejection anymore because nothing stung worse than hearing I wasn't good enough from someone I loved. And slowly, things started to shift. An old professor recommended me for an international design competition. At first, I hesitated. I mean, who was I to think I could stand on the same stage as world-renowned architects? But then I remembered her words. "You don't match my lifestyle." And I thought, hell, maybe she's right. But at least let me prove to myself that I match mine. So I sent in my designs. Weeks passed. I kept working like nothing happened, telling myself not to expect anything. Until one morning, I opened my email and saw a message that made my heart stop. I'd been selected as a finalist. And not just any finalist, but the youngest in the history of that competition. But what I didn't know then was that this award, this stage, this spotlight, it wasn't just going to change my career. It was about to change everything, including the way she looked at me ever again. When I found out I was the youngest finalist in that international competition, I swear, for the first time in months, I actually felt my chest rise with pride instead of sinking with shame. I called my mom immediately, and she cried so hard on the phone, telling me, "See, Beta, I always knew you were meant for something big." For a while, all I felt was pure gratitude. Gratitude for my mentors, my family, and even myself for not giving up. But then, something happened that turned all that gratitude into pure, burning anger. One evening, about a week before the awards ceremony, I was working late in my apartment. My phone buzzed, and I saw a text from one of my old college friends. We hadn't talked in a while, so I opened it thinking maybe he was congratulating me for becoming a finalist. But instead, he sent me a screenshot. It was from her Instagram story. There she was, all dolled up, hair done perfectly, makeup flawless, wearing that same silk robe she wore the day she told me I wasn't good enough. And the caption. God, the caption made my blood boil. She wrote, "Manifesting a man who matches my vibe. Successful, driven, and internationally recognized. I deserve nothing less. Nail polish sparkles. Internationally recognized." Those words, they weren't random. She knew exactly what she was doing. My name had started floating around design circles online, and clearly, it had reached her feed too. I just sat there, staring at that caption, my hands shaking. For months, she made me feel like I was worthless, like I didn't deserve her. And now, suddenly, she's manifesting someone exactly like me, except she wanted the version of me she didn't believe I could become. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about every time she called me too simple. Every time she ignored my messages when I was working late. Every time she complained I wasn't ambitious enough. And now she wanted someone successful and internationally recognized. The audacity. But then, somewhere between that anger and hurt, something inside me shifted. My sadness turned cold. I realized she didn't reject me because I wasn't good enough. She rejected me because she couldn't see my worth. And that's what made her unworthy of me. As I lay there in bed, staring at my ceiling fan spinning lazily, an idea slowly started forming in my head. If she wanted someone internationally recognized, well, she was about to get exactly what she asked for. But not in the way she imagined. Because I was done being her lesson. This time, I was going to become her biggest regret. And that's when I decided, at that awards ceremony, in front of hundreds of people, cameras, and flashing lights, I'd make sure she never forgot the day she told me I didn't match her lifestyle. After that sleepless night, I woke up with a strange calmness in my chest. It was like all my anger and pain had finally settled into something solid, something with purpose. I spent the next few days preparing for the awards ceremony like it was war. I got myself a tailored black suit, the kind that fits perfectly on your shoulders and makes you feel like a king just by standing up straight. I even booked an appointment with the best barber in town. My beard was trimmed sharp, my hair styled clean, and when I looked in the mirror before leaving for New York, I barely recognized myself. But the real preparation wasn't about my clothes or hair. It was about my mind. I kept thinking, how do I show her exactly what she threw away, without even saying a single word to her? The day of the ceremony, I arrived at the venue early. It was this massive hall, filled with designers, architects, media people, influencers, all dressed in their best. As I stood near the refreshment table, pretending to sip my sparkling water, I saw her walk in. She wore a deep emerald gown, hugging her body like liquid silk, her hair curled perfectly around her shoulders. She looked around the room with those calculating eyes, scanning for important people to mingle with. For a moment, my chest tightened, remembering the times I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. But then, I remembered her words, and that tightness dissolved into steel. When it was finally time for the awards, all the finalists were called backstage. My palms were sweaty, my heart was thundering so loud I was scared people could hear it. But I kept repeating to myself, "You belong here. You earned this. Don't you dare look down." They called my name. As I stepped onto that stage, blinded by the lights, I could hear the applause echoing around me. My design was being praised on giant screens behind me, my name shining in golden letters, flashes going off everywhere. And there she was, right in the front row, staring up at me with her eyes wide and her mouth slightly open. I held the award in my hands, feeling its weight, feeling every second of pain and rejection that led me here. The host handed me the mic and asked if I wanted to say anything. My hands trembled for a second. Then I took a deep breath and spoke. "I just want to say, thank you. Not just to the judges and mentors, but to every single person who ever told me I wasn't good enough. Because without them, I wouldn't have had the fire to stand here today." I paused. Our eyes met. For a second, everything went silent around me. I saw her blinking rapidly, swallowing hard, her fingers gripping her clutch so tight her knuckles turned white. I continued, "Sometimes, rejection isn't the end. Sometimes, it's just the push you needed to build yourself into the person you always dreamed of becoming." The crowd clapped again, but I barely heard it. All I saw was her face, stunned, regretful, and for the first time, completely powerless. But this wasn't the end. Because after the ceremony, when she tried to approach me backstage with that fake soft smile on her lips, I did something that sealed my revenge forever. After the ceremony ended, people crowded around me, shaking my hand, asking about my designs, offering business cards. But in the middle of all that noise, I saw her standing by the backstage entrance, clutching her glittery purse, looking like she was trying to gather the courage to walk up to me. When our eyes met, she gave me that soft smile I used to fall for, the one that said, "Hey, I miss you." And honestly, for a split second, my chest tightened again. Memories of us cooking late-night noodles in my tiny kitchen, laughing under cheap fairy lights, her falling asleep on my chest while I read construction codes, all of that flashed before me like a cruel slideshow. She finally walked up, gently touched my arm, and said, "Hey, congratulations. I saw your name everywhere. I'm so proud of you." I looked at her, trying to read her eyes. Was she actually proud, or was she just trying to crawl back into a life she thought was now worth living? She continued, her voice shaking a little. "Listen, I've been meaning to call you. I know things ended weirdly between us, and I was wondering if maybe we could catch up sometime. I'd love to hear all about your journey." I took a deep breath and just smiled. Not the sarcastic smile. Not the angry smile. Just a genuine, calm smile. And I said, "You know, I used to dream about this moment. I used to imagine you coming back, realizing what you threw away. But now that it's here, I don't feel anything." Her smile froze. I could see her eyes dart around nervously as she tried to laugh it off. "Oh, come on, don't be like that. I just want to talk." But I shook my head. "No. You don't. You just want to feel connected to my success. But where were you when I had nothing? Where were you when I needed someone to believe in me, not my bank balance or my award titles?" She stood there speechless, her lips parting like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. I leaned in a little closer and whispered, "You were right, you know. I didn't match your lifestyle back then. But now, you don't match mine." Then I walked away. I didn't look back, not even once. As I stepped outside into the cool New York night, trophy in hand, the city lights sparkling like a billion tiny dreams, I felt this wave of peace wash over me. I realized revenge isn't always about destroying the other person. Sometimes, It's just about proving to yourself that you were always enough, with or without them. And in that moment I felt free. Truly free. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't making them regret losing you. It's loving the person you became after they left.